All right. Welcome to Newmarket Energy and Environment Advisory Committee meeting. What is today? The 28th, June 28th, 2023. So roll call from our secretary.
We have Joe, Ellen, Bill, Patrick, Roberta here. Excused are Juliana and Alex. We do have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. And this would be when I opened a public forum, but we don't have any members of the public in attendance currently. If anybody comes in, I'll be happy to give them 3 minutes to speak. And I do want to start because I do have an announcement that I did accept a job in Alaska for the summer. And so I'm leaving in 2 weeks and won't be back until October, captaining a small tour whale watch vessel. So you will be without me, but you have our prestigious Vice Chair Roberta to chair any meetings that you may decide to have. There is, and perhaps we should talk about it now, whether or not we want to go down to one meeting every 2 months or stay at one a month. I'm open to comments.
Joe, you were saying something about the...
Yeah, so one of the agenda items was talking about where we stand with community power and all that. So anyway, we've submitted the electric aggregation plan to the Public Utilities Commission. They have until August to approve it. We will then give the town manager and the lawyers or whatever the different agreements, the cost sharing agreements that they have to review. They have to have that approved by the end of November. Mm-hmm. So they'll have, September, October, they'll have a good time to look at that.
And you said, I'm sorry, you said they, I just wanted to make sure I knew who they was.
Steve, the town manager and the lawyers would take a look at it and then get it to the town council.
Okay, so the council is okay.
Yeah.
But the next step, in other words, is for the PUC to approve us, and that they have until August to do that.
August 19th.
So we would, by our next scheduled meeting at the end of July, we wouldn't necessarily have that information back. We would still be kind of in limbo. So it may make sense to skip our July meeting if I'm not here anyway, or you can continue more work on the master plan. The master plan is not a time, sensitive thing. This is a long-term project, so it's really up to the committee members what they want to do. Are there any other discussion on a meeting every month or every 2 months over the summer?
I unfortunately can't be here in July. I won't be here at that. I believe that's like July 25th or 26th is that meeting. I think it's somewhere in that date range. I'm just out of town that week. But I would be here for August or September after that. So
it sounds like we'll at least skip July's meeting, have August's meeting, and I can take a vote on this. And then I won't be back for the September meeting either, but I'll be back for October. So, do you want to skip just the July and then continue on, or do you want to skip July, have August, skip September, and then resume monthly?
My preference would be to skip July.
Make a decision then.
We have at the end of August. At that point in time, we should have the JPA approved. Mm-hmm. We can also, at that point in time, look at the cost-sharing agreements that we have to ask the town manager and the town council. It's our recommendation that they go ahead and do that. So we can take a look at that and then pass that on at the end of August to them. That gives them September, October, and a good portion of September and October for the town manager and lawyers to look at it. November for the town council to have their team meetings on it.
So do you think it makes sense to have a meeting in September or skip the September meeting?
I would say let's plan on the September meeting as well.
All right, so does someone want to make a motion at least to skip the July meeting?
I move to skip the July meeting.
All right, Roberta moves in a second.
I will second.
Joe seconds. All those in favor of skipping the July meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, seeing none. And just like that, we're skipping July.
Just want to make sure that we get that to Wendy so she can get it off the calendar.
In fact, oh wait, she had sent me an email about the August meeting, but not the July, so I'll happily email her. All right, next item is acceptance of minutes from our previous May meeting.
Yes, I've seen it, they're okay with me.
All right.
I found a typo, in the second paragraph. This is expected to happen early fall, winter, and final town council approval around March 2023. I assume you meant March 2024.
Yes.
So what's the typical procedure? Do we vote to change? So-
Yeah, we
so-
vote to accept.
We make a recommendation with the mentioned edits.
Okay, so somebody's moving to accept with the amendment,
I
to
move-
change 2023 to 2024 in the stated place. So moved by Roberta,
Second?
seconded by Bill. And all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm
And
going to
opposed?
abstain just because I wasn't here at that
Oh, that's
meeting.
right.
Pat, that's
All right, now we're on to community power, and our role in the electric aggregation plan, which is currently, up to the PUC to approve. We just touched on that, but Joe, you're our Newmarket Community Power Director, it seems?
Yes.
So take it away.
Okay, so, even though we're not officially in community power yet, I think it's interesting to go over what their rates are. So, this past week, they had a public meeting on the proposed rates for, the August through January of, August 2023 through, January 2024. They have the four categories of electric. There's the Granite Basic, Granite Plus, which is, Granite Basic is 23% renewable. Granite Plus is 33% renewable. Clean 50 is 50% renewable, and Clean 100 is 100% renewable. What they are proposing for rates is for the Granite Basic, which is generally the default one that different towns take. Granite Basic, which is 23.4% renewable, they're proposing a rate of 10.9 cents compared to Eversource's 12.58.
That's good.
Okay. Granite Plus, which is 33%, is 11.3 cents compared to Eversource's 12.58 cents. And Clean 50 is 12.3 cents compared to Eversource's 12.58.
Does
Clean-
Eversource have the same rate for all of those levels, or is it just the one 22%?
Yeah, they just have the one
Okay.
rate.
So you can still get 50% renewable energy for less than Eversource's 22% renewable?
Correct.
That's amazing. What do we got for 100?
For 100, it's 15.2%, so it is more expensive than Eversource.
That's still cheaper than what Eversource was charging like 6 months ago, though.
Yeah, one of the things I don't have is what Community Power also had a charge this last 6 months. They were, also, pretty expensive too.
Mhm.
They were still cheaper than Eversource, but
Mhm.
which was 22. They were like 21 or 20, something like that.
I thought Nashville was like 16.
Was it 16?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, you said there were 5 plans, but basic plus
There's
clean
4
50.
plans, just
Oh,
the-
4 plans, okay.
I think that was the basic for Nashville. When they went live with it, they had a news story, and I'm pretty sure they said it was going to be 16 cents. But it might have gone up from there, like you said, with the different options. They probably were still offering the 4 options.
So, they've hired a new CEO, Brian Cullen, I'm sorry. And he is saying that he is committing to ensuring that, community power rates are less than Eversource for at least the next 3 years.
Awesome.
Which would, we're kind of selling, hey, here's a thing that's gonna be cheaper or, very competitive with Eversource, and I think coming in cheaper will be better for us.
And it's worth, well, of course, because everybody wants cheaper ultimately, but the narrative has been for decades that green power is not practical, it's such a pie in the sky thing, we're biting off too much, it's scary. We even had those conversations, even amongst people who understand climate, that the climate is a problem. We had those conversations when the town was adopting the 100% renewable energy. Oh my gosh, is this too much? Is this scary? And when in truth, the projection right now, and that will continue, is fossil fuels are getting more and more expensive. Clean energy is getting cheaper and cheaper. So if we can have clean energy that's cheaper than fossil fuel energy for the next 3 years, I have no doubt that that will continue and even be a bigger difference.
That would be great.
I don't know if this was the state legislature or the PUC, but there's something coming out of the state talking about in the future on electric bills, you will have to see the cost of renewable energy. Is that a bill?
That was a bill. I don't remember what the fate of that bill has been, if it's been passed or not.
I think it's still out there. I think that's what the news story is.
I remember voting on it on the floor. 281, which may be the same bill or a different bill, is up for it. We're having our final session tomorrow of the year until veto session. And that one had some pretty bad stuff in it, but they changed it and it's good now, and it's helping communities come together and build like solar farms and stuff together. So that's good stuff. I'd have to look up the bill number and see where it is.
I mean, I
but
don't think it hurts community power because we're all about renewable energy, but this is more about, I think they think that it'll get customers mad that they're
Yes.
paying extra for renewable power or something like that.
That's the narrative that those that were pushing the bill were trying to say. And then the counter argument was, but we're not showing the cost of fossil fuel energy.
Right.
And all of the externalized costs of fossil fuel energy that we
Right.
don't ever even incorporate into the actual direct cost. So the other side was saying, well, if you're going, you can be transparent about those, but you have to be transparent about all the costs if you're going to do that. So I will pay attention tomorrow and see if it's up. If you're saying it's still like
They were
not
saying it
decided.
was still, up in the air,
Then
but
it's
they
probably
did
for
mention the
tomorrow.
other one that you talked about, which is that, I guess, there was a restriction on if towns wanted to come together to make a community solar project, it couldn't, like, Newmarket and Durham couldn't work together and have it on both sides or something, because if it wasn't in Newmarket, then Newmarket can't participate.
Oh.
But now if it's in Durham, Newmarket could still participate in that
Awesome.
community solar. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah,
they
that's my
were
vague
saying.
understanding.
Yeah.
I understand that a poison pill was placed in the bill early on, but that, it seems the committee of conference got rid of it. And so now all of the usual suspects that want clean energy, like Revision and 603 Solar and all of those people are very much in favor of the bill, as well as nonprofits. We've gone far afield, but we can come back to community power.
That's pretty much all I have.
Okay, all right, so nothing for us to do, no action items until August.
That's right.
When we find out, we hope that the PUC will approve. We see no reason why they wouldn't approve.
Correct, and I think all we want to do is that, hey, this has been approved, these are the things that we now have to pass on to the town manager. And
Right.
Take a look at it.
Excellent, okay. If there's no further discussion on that item, the next item is continuing work on our energy chapter, our suggestion for the energy chapter of the Newmarket Master Plan, and Joe, if you wanted to bring that up, we
So-
can.
Yeah, I apologize, I did not send out that to everybody.
I had every intention of working on it, and with everything that's been happening in the last minute preparations for Alaska, it's been kind of crazy.
So what I did do is I took that Google Doc that we had, and I split it into two parts. One is the vision chapter, which is, you know, different from
Right.
the energy chapter.
Right.
I sent that to everybody. If everybody, you know, I think we've looked at it before. I think everybody's okay with it. What I would suggest is that we don't pass those to the planning board until we have the other chapter. And at that point in time, we pass it all to the planning board and
Absolutely.
let them decide how they want to handle it.
Okay. Is there any way to bring that up, what you sent out?
Yes, so this is the vision section.
Oh, is it just
So-
the vision section?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, what I broke it up was just the vision center, so, I did reword this a little bit to show that, okay, to talk specifically just about this section here,
Okay.
but,
In reviewing the Newmarket Town Policies and Master Plan, the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee found the documents to be lacking in energy policies and planning. The Energy and Environment Advisory Committee proposes the following language principles be added to the vision section of the master plan. The proposed vision language establishes energy and environment as one of the significant guiding principles for a master plan. Patrick, in the master plan, there is a vision section, and then there's like, okay, so our sections would be, we would be proposing two separate, as Joe said.
so this part here is really just something like that would go like
This-
in the cover letter,
Yeah, preamble
right?
kind
It's
of
not
thing.
part of the
Yeah,
thing.
this is what we're,
Under the
Okay.
plan, okay.
And then basically we just have what we have looked at before, haven't we?
right, and this was out of, oh gosh, I always forget, Rise or,
Yes, this was from Rye, I'm sorry, Lebanon.
and we made, we made a few changes last time, but
Mhm.
let's look. Can you go up online?
Okay.
Okay, as a and is everybody okay with me just reading it out loud, and that way we're all together in the same? I find it hard to read to myself when we're in a meeting, just when people are talking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If anybody wants to do this a different way, let me know. As a cornerstone for developing and maintaining a master plan for the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, the Newmarket Town Council and Newmarket Planning Board have adopted the following principles to serve as guidelines for master planning. The following principles address 7 essential areas that need to be considered for a master plan to make a positive difference in our community. Principle number 1, community access and engagement. Good master planning requires that it welcomes the public's participation and honors the public trust. Okay, this is just what we're suggesting to add, so this is not something we currently have.
The master plan currently
Not
has
like
a
this, no.
vision section.
Okay,
Okay, we're asking either add this to the existing, fit it in with the existing vision statement, or perhaps they could just use this whole thing as the
Okay.
vision.
okay, because this is not, so it'd be really great to pull up our master plan and see the vision section, because this doesn't sound specific to energy and environment, but let's continue.
Well, there's different principles. One of the
Right.
principles applies to energy.
Gotcha. Cornerstones of public trust include effective outreach, communication, accountability, and transparency. Encouraging broad, inclusive collaboration in master planning recognizes that all levels of government, together with the nonprofit and private sectors, have a stake in creating and implementing mutually beneficial policies. Improving public access to information, absolutely, and processes can make policies and plans more accountable, transparent, fair, and responsive to community needs. At the same time, because state and federal government decisions affect our community, we can effectively advocate our interests by advancing our participation at those levels. I like that. I mean, but again, we have to compare it to what we have in the vision already and see if we have something already very similar, or is the vision
It's very different.
It's very different.
Right.
So we don't have like these guiding principles that are listed out?
That's correct. There's no, I can call it up when we.
I mean,
we go
we'll
through
just
this one.
continue on. Principle number 2, sense of place. I mean, I do like guiding principles, so. The history of Newmarket anchors our community identity, civic pride, and quality of life. Preserving the character and history of existing neighborhoods, our town center, and the traditions that promote community, while celebrating diversity and inclusion in new and existing neighborhoods, helps keep our community unique. Revitalizing and supporting our town center and key town gateways helps maintain key focal points for community activity. Preserving rural landscape supports farm and forest-based activity, contiguous tracts of open space for people and wildlife, and highly valued scenic assets. Okay.
So So this is the principle that
This is ours.
introduces energy and environment.
Got it. A healthy natural environment in turn sustains human physical, mental, and physical health. Scientific data and practical experience confirm the value of identifying, avoiding, minimizing, and repairing environmental harm. We benefit from clean air, abundant drinking water, productive soils, and diverse ecosystems. Protecting and strengthening our community's natural resources enhances our community capacity to withstand floods, drought, and other potential disasters. Conserving green infrastructure, a network of open space, waterways, and other natural areas is vital to this effort. Partnering with citizens, landowners, schools, businesses, organizations, and other governments, we can responsibly enjoy natural assets now and for many years to come. Newmarket Town departments should lead by example in following or exceeding best management practices for all operations. For example, energy efficiency is critical to environmental health and community prosperity. Effective energy master planning should help promote energy conservation and sustainable technologies. I'm just kind of like thinking as I'm reading. And make those technologies and resources available and accessible to all members of the community regardless of socioeconomic status. I really like that last piece.
Okay. So let me say that with the sentence where it talks about Newmarket Town Departments should lead by example, in our energy chapter, we specifically call out the town and, you know, the things that they're doing and the things that the town should do as a leader.
So this is the broad overview principles,
This is
and then
one-
the energy section will get into the details.
That's
Right.
correct.
I still think this could be written a little bit more clear about energy because the first 2/3 of that paragraph is all about conservation of wild areas. And just the last two sentences are like, for example, we can do good energy stuff. But I feel like it could be more strongly worded around energy sustainability and how we fit into how environment is not just our local wild areas and the quality of our water, but that we are inextricably a part of the entire planet. And so what we consume in terms of energy resources affects everything, which comes back around to us. You know, something like that. You know what I'm saying? And not just that we should lead by example on the town level, but like also do everything in our power to empower all the community members to reach sustainable energy practices. I'm just thinking what that should be more pinpointed about energy is what I'm saying. Whatever, we can continue, it's just,
Okay, we'll come
if
back how
anyone
we
else
want
has any
changes.
comments as I'm reading, then by all means. Intelligent coordinated development and transportation. Unregulated and ill-planned development detracts from many of the principles outlined here and should be discouraged if we are to secure those assets that make our community desirable. Coordinating infill development, adapting reuse of existing buildings, and conservation design for new development will maintain viable settlement patterns and efficiently use existing infrastructure. Managing an orderly pace of development will minimize negative effects on town finances from associated needs for increased facilities and services as our community grows. Developing that gets into a whole nother issue, and this isn't really our purview, but like, the little hairs on the back of my hand or back of my arm stand up because it's like, it could potentially discourage affordable housing, but that's neither here nor there. Developing attractive human scale, mixed use, walkable, bikeable neighborhoods will help conserve and enhance quality of life. Integration of multimodal transportation systems and electric vehicles should be encouraged to promote alternatives to the traditional combustion engine automobile. Benefits include less traffic congestion, less air pollution, less wear and tear on roads, and safer access for people of all ages and abilities.
You've described before, Ellen, in conversations we've had about multifamily housing or affordable housing that can be in walkable neighborhoods.
Oh, sure, I wasn't.
You were using mine as an example. So, I mean, I think the language that's there could be kept without excluding it, and maybe put something in about walkable neighborhoods for all types of socioeconomic housing options.
Yeah, absolutely. The walkable piece is the second paragraph. My spidey senses were about the first paragraph that was like, not that anything in the first paragraph is untrue, but that maybe something could be added to clarify.
Right, that would,
You still need to focus on affordable housing.
yeah.
So, but it doesn't matter because that's not our thing. Although I guess there's probably some intersection of affordable housing and energy use. Principle number 5, economic vitality. Local businesses are a key component of any viable community. They foster and bind a community. Master planning should support a healthy climate for existing desirable enterprises and foster a sustainable, innovative, and diversified business environment to attract new businesses and proactively position our community for a continually changing world. Economic vitality also depends upon the ability to attract, develop, and retain a capable, creative, and highly motivated workforce. All right, here we go. Planning should support educational, cultural, and entrepreneurial opportunities that attract people with diverse demographics. In support of a diversified workforce, master planning should promote a range of affordable housing options to help strengthen and grow our, that's what I was saying, as soon as we got to workforce, I'm like, okay, here we go. To strengthen and grow our job base, all of these activities will encourage further community investment, reduce poverty, and promote prosperity and diversity. I am thinking, and I don't know what the planning board has been doing with the vision section, that we can discuss this, but it might be that for our purposes, we just want to focus on the part of the vision that would be energy and environment, but I do personally really like the guiding principles format, but I don't know what our current format is, so.
Well, yeah,
It doesn't
can you
have
pull it
that.
up, Jeff?
Well,
It doesn't spell things out that way.
We'll get through the last two, and then we'll pull up our current and see how they could possibly jive together. Fiscal responsibility, master planning has to take into account the impact on municipal finances. Plans should be developed such that current and future generations of residents can afford to live here. The alternative would erode the traditional socioeconomic diversity that has distinguished our community. Careful attention to land use and tax policies such as promoting redevelopment in order to increase asset valuations can raise new revenues without incurring new costs for municipal services. Okay. Incentives for sensible frugality can yield further savings. Okay. I don't know, there's a lot of things I think could be like reworked a little bit. Number 7, regional partnerships. Newmarket is uniquely positioned within the seacoast region of New Hampshire with its proximity to the Lamprey River, Great Bay, and roadways that unite Newmarket with other communities. Our community, as well as the region, can benefit by actively engaging with neighboring towns to achieve common goals and address common challenges and opportunities more effectively. To the benefit of Newmarket, financial and operational efficiencies may result from economies of scale. Encouraging a regional view of community interdependence while respecting local autonomy can enable the community to manage growth locally and collaborate regionally. All right. I mean, in general, I like it. Should we look at our current vision section?
Yes, take me a second to get there.
I think maybe just, there's like little parts that either something could be added, something could be clarified, or maybe the implication can be shifted a little bit. Yeah. And by all, I'm sorry for everybody having to hear my voice so much. But anybody can pipe up. I encourage it.
There's your vision chapter right
All right.
This is just, there's multiple pieces to it. This is
All
just
right,
kind of
it's
like the
just one.
preamble.
What does the rest of it look like? So we have leadership, volunteerism, and engagement. That couldn't have been the whole thing. That wasn't the whole thing, was it? The vision chapter, when you click on vision chapter?
Go to the title page. I don't, so,
Is this the-
yeah, I don't think that they wrote it out like as formally as what we just saw in the suggestions that we have there. It's much more, the vision is kind of throughout the whole document when they're talking about specific areas. That's where they sort of
I see.
talk about things, about the vision of things, but it's not, it doesn't have anything as organized as that.
So, I guess the question is, how do you feel as a planning board member in, like, kind of having those, like, in not saying those particular principles, but the idea of having a vision chapter that contains guiding principles that are supposed to inform the direction of the rest of the plan?
I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think one of the benefits we have right now on the planning board is we have the staff that we have, the town staff. Bart, he's very,
I love Bart.
yeah, he's great. So I'm sure as we go through this process, we'll bring in that here's a good, here's best practices that we can look at as we look at the document. And so, yeah, I think it will all be on the table to look at. I don't think there's commitment that we have to do it the way we did it before. What we want to come out with is something that truly can guide the community as it makes decisions
Right.
for the next, as we're almost at 300 years, right? We're sort of hitting that period. But a lot of the things in there are more, they're kind of specific about like parts of town and how they could be developed and things like that. So it's more, I think it's written, to be fair, more from an economic standpoint than a vision standpoint. It's more like, here's kind of where we are, here's the resources we have, here's the land possibilities we have, here's a broad suggestion of how we can both develop and conserve. You can see there's an open space plan in there. That's for conservation, right? And so there are parts, but there's nothing on energy. That's the one thing
Right.
that is really missing. Because when this was written, none of the things, especially that we're talking about, like things like car charging, what should we be doing for that? Having energy produced in the town through either solar on people's roofs or solar arrays. None of that was on the table, I don't even think, last time this was reviewed. So that's where I feel like this group could have an impact, and and the Community Power Initiative, all of that kind of works together to promote a lot of rethinking of energy use that has never been really thought of before.
Well, I think that that's the goal. The vision section is just
Yeah.
kind of a separate thing, but like
Yeah.
our goal is to have this really comprehensive energy chapter to submit to the planning board. I will say that even though those other 5.5, I'll say 5.5 vision principles weren't directly tied to what we here are specializing in, the idea of having, instead of just being this big economic, document that, this is the best from an economic standpoint, the idea of having a vision chapter that guides through principle any decisions we make later on, to prioritize what our values are as a community and how we are going to prioritize what we do later on. I think that does come back to our purview because we care about the energy, we care about the environment, so in such a way that we want that to be a guiding principle for the town. And while we may not be able to have the specialty to say what the other principles should be, that's more of a planning board thing, I think that we as a committee can advocate for saying we should have guiding principles in that vision chapter, and one of those needs to be the environment.
Right, and so what, I guess I didn't say it right, but, so like if you were to click on conservation lands, that's kind of what they're saying is their guiding vision of conservation lands. Like, here's the conservation lands that we have, plan for potential development. If you were to click on that, that's what the idea is, in other words, instead of having it at the beginning in a statement, like you said, it's throughout the whole document. It would say, this is our vision for this is our vision for that, by putting it as a, this is the plan for these
Right.
particular things. They just don't use the word vision like that
Well,
document
And I
does.
think that's right. I guess so I guess what I would say is while we're calling it a vision, because I think that's Lebanon or whatever had called it that, really it's more accurate to say guiding principles.
Right.
Because while I'm seeing vision in all these chapters that you're talking about, oh, look, this is our idea, that's based on what guiding principles did that vision get built on? Are they prioritizing economics? Are they prioritizing the environment? Are they prioritizing people's well-being in town? Is it some combination of all of those things? We don't know because we just see the final vision, but we don't know what was guiding them.
I see what you're saying.
So I think it is within our purview as a committee, but people can feel free to agree or disagree, to advocate for a guiding principle section at the beginning of the plan. And then whilst we can't tell you what all the guiding principles should be, that would be your job, we should advocate for that section and say, and one of those should be the environment.
So you don't think we should turn in all of this?
I think that if we could decide as a committee to wordsmith the whole thing, and if Patrick wants to take it to the planning board and say, here's what these guys came up with, what do you think, then that's cool. I don't know if it's, I'm not gonna make a decision, I'll let the committee make a decision, but, I don't know if it is, necessarily appropriate for us to officially submit like a principle on community access and engagement, or a principle on, something else, if it doesn't pertain to energy and environment.
So we may need to if we want to do those things, we need to wordsmith in energy and environment throughout the vision.
Well, no, I don't mean that either. I think we can wordsmith it as a committee. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to make the official recommendation to the planning board on all of those points, except to say we officially recommend that you have this guiding principle chapter at the beginning, and here's some ideas that we have, but we can officially recommend the environment chapter and the energy chapter, or the guiding principles, whatever they call it.
Or you could say, this is the format that we were looking at, right? So the beginning has the vision and the principles. And so we're giving you an example of what that would look like for everything.
Sure.
And then you can see that, and that's how we start this. And then here's our energy part. We're not gonna give further detail on all these things.
No.
But it sort of at least gives them an idea, okay, here's where they came with that concept, and it fleshes it out a little bit. I don't think there's any harm in sending it that way, because it's different, and you can sort of explain, and this is, why we're doing it this way.
No, I actually like that too. So we can kind of officially recommend the fact that there is a guiding principle chapter at the beginning, the fact that one of those guiding principles is environment or energy, or however we divide it, and then the energy chapter that we come up with, but we can still submit the entire thing as an example. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you.
Does that make sense to everybody? I'm sorry if I'm over analyzing I apologize, but this is, and I certainly don't want to step on the planning board's toes.
What were you gonna say, Joe?
No, I agree.
Okay.
It's not our bailiwick or our responsibility, whatever, to say, to talk about those other sections, like, financial responsibility and all that.
But
This is an example of, hey, here's
exactly.
something that covers pretty much everything that a master plan should cover.
Right.
Here's our, a starting
Yeah,
point.
I like
that's
it.
my thought. Here's the committee's ideas about what ought to be there.
Right.
How do you
So,
want to put it in there?
because we're advocating for there to be guiding principles, because we want the environment to be a guiding principle, so we're advocating for guiding principles in general, it does make sense to submit an example, and then the planning board can take it from there and do what they like with it. All right,
All
so,
right, so the next thing I would say then is, I don't know how far we get by wordsmithing things as a group. I would be perfectly fine to give it to you and Berta, if you guys want to take a cut at it, and I don't know how about the other people will, but
I mean,
you
we
guys
can
wanna
all-
take a cut at it, and then bring it back and say, okay, here's what we're proposing, and then
Yeah.
we either accept it or don't. Is
I
that-
have a writing method suggestion.
yeah,
You would, start working on looking at the energy section that has all the details and nitty-gritty.
Mhm.
Use those details details to reverse engineer our principles a second time.
Mm.
And I know, cause,
Mm.
and,
Well,
I-
again, it sort of does. I've
Okay.
been kind of like going back to, okay, what did we say here in the guiding principles for this? And we talk about the town being a leader, and when we talk about the different things, you know, the town has done this, the town should do that. You know, we do
Great.
kind of relate back to it. It may not be
excellent,
every
cause
single
I have
line.
not really delved into the energy section of this yet.
There is no energy section.
In-
I thought Joe,
In
We
the existing master plan, no, there is no
oh,
energy
no, I
section.
meant in what we were
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
do.
we have that.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's what we were working on last time,
yeah,
but I detested the way it was organized. It didn't make any sense to me.
okay,
So this makes sense to me.
all right.
Yep.
So we should be focusing our energy on the section that doesn't make any sense yet.
And that was my intention over this last month, and then everything
Yeah,
about getting a
no,
job in Alaska and
yes, I
everything
know.
has kind of, so I did have, and I even took notes last time, a clear idea. I kept calling it buckets, but it's essentially an outline of how we want to address, how do we, so the main items, the main buckets are, how do we procure energy? Where do we procure our energy from? A lot of that's going to be CPC, Newmarket Community Power. But there's other things as well. And then efficiency, which the town on the town level has already done, but there's stuff that we can do for members of the town. And then transportation was another bucket that we talked about bringing in Carol Gulla in and some others to kind of guide us on the public transportation aspect of the transportation. But there's also like electric charging stations and anything else that's related to the energy when I say transportation, I'm not talking about the transportation section of the master plan, which would deal with like roads and things, but I'm
Right.
talking about like, how do we make sure that the fuels that we need to use to transport people is as sustainable and efficient as possible. So that's kind of how I was dividing things, and I kind of had put an outline in the notes several months ago. I put an outline in the notes at
Oh,
the
on the
end.
Google Docs version?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll start reading that. I think I did read through it once, I just had never sat here with everybody and looked at it and.
So, I definitely, okay, so here's been the issue. Getting everyone to do their homework individually it fails every time. I don't care what committee, I don't care what it is, it always fails. But we never have enough time as a committee. So here's what I'm gonna propose, and people tell me what you think. We'll have a subcommittee, an unofficial subcommittee, because as long as it's 4 or fewer members, we don't need to notice any meetings, right? So we'll have 2 or 3 people on a subcommittee to put some suggestions forward. I'm happy to be on that subcommittee, and the great thing about that is we can have Zoom meetings.
Right.
While I'm in Alaska, I could do Zoom meetings and help out with that. And then by the time you have your August meeting, you'll have something official that everybody can look at. Not official, but like a good proposal that everybody can look at and the whole committee can then wordsmith. But Roberta, do you want to be on my
Sure.
subcommittee? Who else wants to be on my subcommittee?
Great to have a planning
It's
board
fine if it's
member
just
on
me
the
and Roberta.
subcommittee.
If no one volunteers, it's fine if it's just me and Roberta, and I love Roberta, so it's always a good time.
I'm fine with.
You're like, yeah, okay, all right.
Passing the.
I'm fine.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a good time this summer right now to do this, but, the only thing I would say is, when I was looking at this, let's see, go up a little bit, under the land use part
Of the
of
the guiding principles or this chapter?
this chapter, I think we have a land use part here, don't we? Maybe not, maybe it's just, so, the reason I'm thinking about that is, if you look at the master plan pulls up parts of Newmarket, maps it, and says, this is what should happen here, this is what should happen here. I think it's appropriate for the energy plan to make suggestions So you kind of make suggestions there. You talked about retrofitting the dam. You talk about a community solar field. I think it's okay to even make a suggestion and say, those could be located in these places, because that is actually what the master plan does. It does make suggestions about land use, whether it's privately held land or publicly held land. It doesn't matter, because all of it's in the mix when you're doing a master plan, because what you're saying is this is how we want the town to develop.
That's excellent, and, what was I gonna say? So there's a couple things, not to get into the weeds right now, but there were a couple of ideas about how to do essentially a town, generation of solar energy. We can start and just take, okay, all this land belongs to Newmarket, let's just put up a solar field.
Right.
We can also do a decentralized way where we basically are putting up solar panels on people's homes, and we have an arrangement with those people. Something I want to say for the planning board specifically, because I was just speaking with actually his municipal association in Concord yesterday. A lot of states have been, in areas within states, have been adopting a policy, which I think makes a lot of sense, where their local regional planning commissions have the data, provide them the data of what the projected population growth is going to be, and then you plan to that data. So the whole idea is that the plan contains at least the concept that what we should be doing should be matching that trajectory. But it could even include specific, how we get there. Which is not to say necessarily that's what the town will do, but at least that should be the plan.
That definitely is in the master plan.
Oh, that's already there, okay.
They have things, but it needs to be updated, obviously, because new assumptions.
But we have the data's available, as I understand.
Yeah, the data's available, and it'll definitely be incorporated in there. There's a lot of demographics. You can see there was a housing and demographics thing. I mean, we all know the challenge with housing is, and they're working on that, but it's, we applied for 2 projects with the affordable housing thing, and neither project was funded for workforce housing. We had developers in town willing to build it, and they applied for the funds, and they didn't get it. So that was our best hope of getting anything remotely affordable, because everything else that's being built in town probably starts at around 700,000. Yeah, so that's the market.
There are other things we can do, because it's something I've been working, I'm on the housing committee in Concord, and we've been talking a lot about other things. So it's the idea of let's get a developer to promise to keep the prices low. It has been the standard go-to for towns, but there are other ways to do it. But we can, I'm getting far afield of energy and environment at this point, but that's excellent.
One thing that does relate to energy, you might have heard this, is what the Newmarket Housing Authority did. Did you hear about that?
No.
So they
got
applied for a grant
Yes.
for solar power for their housing and got it. $370,000.
I did see that.
Which is probably in the order of, I don't know, it's probably almost 10 megawatts or more of solar power that they'll be generating on their roofs with that much money in solar panels.
Okay, that's awesome. That's
So,
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah, I did see that.
Probably the power for that entire project, that entire housing project will now be producing more electricity than it uses.
And how great when we're Newmarket Community Power and we are basically the recipients of the net energy.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So those kinds of projects, if we could, focus on that in our master plan, how do we continue to look at things like that? That was all done by a grant writing by that Newmarket Housing Authority. They earned that. That's their kudos.
I love it. All right. So I don't think we need to take a vote for me and Roberta to have an unofficial subcommittee, but she and I, over the next 2 months, because you'll be skipping July's meeting, we'll get together a few times by Zoom while I'm off in Alaska.
Right.
And I'm 4 hours behind you, by the way.
I was gonna ask you what the time zone difference is
It's 4 hours, but I should be working like 7 to 3-ish, so that'll make, whatever, we'll figure it out. Anyway, the point is that we'll meet up and we'll come up with a recommendation, both for the vision section, which will be our example to the planning board of what we would like to see, and then the actual energy section, the chapter. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Oh, look at that, we're under an hour. Is there any other discussion on this item? Is there any other business, new business, anything? Well, once we get through this master plan section of energy, I would like us to revisit something that, in the future, which it'll take months, but revisit the waste management and also there's been some talk about water issues, but the idea of how are we doing our recycling, are we doing it in the best way? I think it's worth finding out. But that's for after this, and so if there's no other business,
But just one other
Yeah.
thing to consider when you're working on the energy chapter, if we can also kind of like word it, we do owe that other piece, the resolution energy plan, which
Yes.
is a detailed plan.
yes.
My hope was that we could use this to be a good chunk or a cornerstone of that.
Well, I mean, I don't know, and I guess it'll be like looking at our current master plan, how detailed these different chapters are, because they look far more detailed than I originally thought. So I thought that the master plan was gonna be like an overview, and then the comprehensive resolution plan was gonna get, but this looks really detailed though, what they have in the master plan already. For everything.
Something.
For some things, right. So, yeah, it is, so I think what I'm saying is I don't know yet whether or not we'll get into that level of detail for the master plan. If we do, then we're done. And if not, if we don't get into that level of detail, then we'll have to come up with the third plan.
Wait, are we talking about looking at their entire master plan as part of our writing our
No,
own energy?
no, no, not the master plan. We're not doing the whole master plan. Joe's point, and this is something we've discussed, but I know that you just got, re-put on the committee, is that our resolution that we passed for 100% renewable energy says that we have to come up with a comprehensive energy plan to get there.
Oh.
So the question is, what we submit to the planning board as an energy plan for the master plan, an energy chapter for the master plan, is that detailed enough to be that comprehensive plan? Or is that going to be more of a 30,000-foot view? And then we have to then take that as the outline and then flesh it out more to come up with a
Oh.
comprehensive resolution plan.
Yeah, a master plan is usually pretty detailed, right?
Well, the person
Well,
is,
No?
It isn't that, I mean,
Yes and no.
actually, it uses that 30,000-foot view as part of what it does. It's
All right.
not necessarily going to give you,
On this day, do
line by
this.
line, what to do.
Okay.
It is more of a framework.
Oh,
Well, and
okay.
remember, we are not in charge of what actually ends up being the energy chapter of the master plan.
No,
The
we're making a
planning board
recommendation.
and then the town council is, right? So it kind of maybe will depend on how much of what we suggest ends up in the final voted upon version.
Yeah,
And if they only adopt like just the bare bones, if we submit a
Then
whole
we-
bunch and they only adopt like this simplified version, then maybe we take that and make it the resolution plan.
right.
I can't imagine if they're gonna nitpick what you say for your energy chapter.
Well,
Your energy chapter, fine.
I don't know.
I
I don't know. But, okay, so that sounds good to everybody? Let's just focus on what we suggest to the master plan, and then we'll go from there, how much more detail we want to go in
Yeah.
later. But this is our focus now. And, I'm sorry, I know that you've said this before, Patrick, but is there a deadline for when you all are going to submit
We haven't even convened to start that yet, so.
okay.
Yeah, I would say we're not gonna start it until 2024.
Wow, and,
So we'll-
oh, sorry.
gonna say, when you
You'll
said
have
that
our
we would have-
recommendation before you even start, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
it's fine, that is great, right, because I think, yeah, there's,
I'm sorry, but.
we're currently reviewing some other, stuff, and then after that, the next thing is to start looking at the northern gateway. That's like the next thing on the planning board's agenda. And so, once we get that, that'll take a few meetings.
By Northern Gateway, do you just mean like 108 going up to Durham? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, technically, it's like from the bridge, the Veterans Bridge, to the Durham line. That part, they wanna relook at the whole zoning map and
What are we
plan
doing
for
here?
that to see, make it, how can they make it better, basically, is what they're looking at. More vital, more tied to downtown, all kinds of things. So they'll we'll sort of get the criteria of what that is, but that is the next project, sort of, up.
So then, you had said that we would come up with the entire energy section by August, and I think that's an awfully tight deadline that we don't really need to meet.
I was speaking for me and you to come up with a proposal.
I know,
And then they would, and the committee would then get to have something to work with, but
I'd
we
like
just
more
don't.
time to work on the proposal than just,
Well, I think whatever, okay, but whatever we come up with, you all can still discuss in August. It
Right.
doesn't matter how far along we get.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I would think August would be, a stretch to make August. But if we have, in August, at that meeting, we can kind of take a look at, here's what we've got, and, give us an idea where it's going, that'd be great.
Right, yeah, so that's basically my goal, is it's not that I think you and I will have a perfectly finished product, but that if we can reorganize everything and at least touch on everything so
Okay.
that the committee can then have something sensible before them that they can weigh in on
Right,
at a meeting.
yeah,
Because right now I feel like everything is so jumbled up and doesn't make sense that we can't work as a committee wordsmithing it because it's not organized properly,
right.
is my opinion. But whatever we come up with, then you'll work on as a committee in August, and you'll be
Got it.
chairing that meeting.
Yay.
Yeah, you look super excited about that. Okay. I feel like, oh, and by the way, but just to, not to go all the way back, but when we were talking about walkability and land use, I think that is something that's pertinent and would fall under the transportation bucket for us, is you all should make these areas more walkable, or, focus on walkability or whatever,
Yeah.
bicycleability. But anyway, anything else on this topic of master plan? If there's no other business, then I will adjourn with the understanding that you all be meeting next in August, the last Wednesday of August,
Yeah,
I
what
think.
date is that?
I'll double check, hold on. It might have been the one we changed. Oh, it was the one we changed to the 23rd, August 23rd. And Roberta Branca will be chairing it. All right, I guess we're adjourned.